News Center 16's Barbara Harrington joins us live from the scene with the very latest on this positive ending to this massive search. And Barbara, you're smiling, and I imagine everybody involved in this story is smiling right now.
You know, they really are, Terry. You put it best, a happy ending to this story. You couldn't have asked for anything more. Police started searching for Tavernier around 10 this morning. Nearly 12 hours later, they found her in this cornfield surrounded by a wooded area. And remarkably, the sheriff says she was in good condition. So a very happy ending. Now, this all started early this morning around 2. Tavernier was last seen in her home around that time, a room at Dolly's house, which is over on Ireland, not too far from where she ended up being found. Now, sometime after 2, she wandered away from the residence, which she has done before. So a very dire situation. 91 years old. Police say she does appear to have some form of dementia. So they were called to the scene to help search for her. They started out on foot. They also drove around in squad cars, but they quickly realized this was going to take more to track her down. So they called in the sheriff's posse to start searching on horseback. They also brought in ATVs, dogs, and even a plane from the Indiana State Police to help find Tavernier out here. And they were about to call this search off. They had decided when nightfall came, they were going to call it quits, come back out tomorrow morning. But that's when 3 riders from the sheriff's posse decided they were going to check one more area, a cornfield over off Jackson Road, and that's when they saw a footprint.
One of our officers dismounted from his horse, started looking around, decided to walk into the corn a little bit, and found her standing. And she was able to walk on her own, supported, out to the edge of the woods there, and very confused and obviously a little bit dehydrated, but the ambulance personnel said her blood pressure looks good. She's drinking, so she's going to go to the hospital, get checked out.
Absolutely remarkable that she was standing, talking. Aside from that dehydration and a few scrapes and cuts, it appears she's going to be okay. She's now at a St. Joseph County hospital with her family. Now, the sheriff says they really could not have done this without the residents who live in this area. When they first heard that Tavernier was missing, they put out a call to A Child is Missing, and that's a national organization. They then put out a recorded call alerting neighbors in an 8-mile radius that Tavernier was missing. And that just drew residents out of their homes on horseback, bicycle, foot, and they helped police cover a lot of ground tonight. So the sheriff is very thankful. He says they truly could not have done it without them. It was a community effort out here tonight, and boy, did it pay off.
Barbara Harrington's in the newsroom. So, Barbara, what are people so concerned about with this?
Well, Terry, those living near the proposed site say their biggest concerns are the potential for odor to come from the crematorium and how it might impact their property values. So we headed out to 2 South Bend neighborhoods that already have crematoriums nearby to get some answers. South Bend's McGann Hay Funeral Home has been in the business of burial for more than 100 years.
We actually had to take people down to Fort Wayne, and maybe that would happen once or twice a year, and we had to drive down there to have them cremated.
Since then, a lot has changed. The demand for cremation rose so rapidly, they decided to build their own crematorium.
We wanted to have complete control from start to finish.
Zahoran Funeral Home in South Bend wants to do the same thing on South Franklin Street. It's getting pushback from those living nearby who fear it could negatively impact their quality of life. But McGann Hay's funeral director says they haven't had a single complaint about their crematorium.
Most of our neighbors would not even know it's there unless, we told them or they had occasion to find out.
So we took a walk down the street to find out what people had to say. Does the McGann Funeral Home crematorium impact them in any way? Well, many of them didn't even know it was there. Did you even know there was a crematorium here?
No, I don't. I really don't know that there's a crematorium down here.
We spoke to several homeowners, many who didn't want to go on camera, but all of them said they haven't noticed any odd smells from the crematorium, and it hasn't affected them in any way.
No, we didn't have any problem like that. Like we don't smell anything.
We also stopped by Welsheimer Funeral Home on North William Street, which also has a crematorium.
You don't smell anything, you don't see smoke or anything.
Jessie Jackson lives right next door and says it doesn't bother her. In fact, she's glad the crematorium's her neighbor.
It's nice. Nobody's really over there.
Barbara, the Burns murder is one a lot of us remember.
Well, it certainly is, Mo. It's one that really stuck with the community through the years. Craig Whitefield, he's the officer who was originally assigned to this case out of Mishawaka, and he says that it really shook the community up because back in 1988, there was hardly any crime on the east side of Mishawaka. Now, this happened in January of 1988. Teresa Burns, she left Mishawaka High School to go home and change her clothes. She was supposed to come back, but she never did. Later that night, her family found her with multiple gunshot wounds to the head. When police arrived to the scene, near her body, they found the ejector rod of a .22 caliber gun on the floor. No gun, but the ejector rod. Now, after that, police conducted hundreds of interviews trying to follow up on tips, find any leads, find the person responsible. At some point after the murder, Philip Jeans' parents, they went to the Mishawaka Police Department and they turned in a gun, a .22 caliber gun that they said they found in Philip's bed. They didn't want him to have it because they thought only bad things could come from it. Police noticed that gun had the ejector rod missing. Well, 2 experts tested it and they determined that it was in fact the gun that was used to kill Teresa Burns. And also at some point, multiple occasions after the murder, Philip talked about Teresa Burns and the gun used in the murder to his friends. At one point, he even threatened 2 people saying that he would kill them like he killed Teresa Burns. So police say a bittersweet day for them to be able to arrest him. He was just walking along Lincoln Way in Mishawaka to finally put him behind bars. Unfortunately, both of Teresa's parents are dead. They had several health problems after this murder, and they're not around to see it.
Yeah, that is so sad, Barbara. So why were police finally able to make an arrest now?
You know, Mo, they couldn't give us a lot of details on the timeline at this point in terms of when that gun was tested, when Philip made these statements about the murder or the gun, but they said that this all came together recently and they had enough to go ahead and charge him and make the arrest today.
Okay, Barbara, I know this all just happened in the last hour, but do we know, was he also a student? Was that brought up?
We have not confirmed whether or not he was a student, but he said that he did know Teresa. She was a friend of one of his girlfriends, apparently.
All right. Barbara Harrington reporting live. Thank you very much.
Barbara, there are still 2 more trials to go. This family has been through so much already. How are they holding up?
Well, you know, Terry, that night still haunts many of them. Some of them were actually inside themselves and now have scars that are a daily reminder of the horror they went through. But to them, the scars, they're nothing compared to the loss of Sandra Price. 67-year-old Sandra Price had a passion for flowers, animals, and country music. But her smile was always widest when she was around family.
She just had a great grandchild, so she was really excited about that.
You've seen one, you've seen us both. We were always together.
So over the more than 30 years, she and her husband Kent lived in their Michigan Street home. It felt like home to just about everyone else.
It was laughter and fun from the moment we walked in till the moment we walked out.
But when 5 men walked in on December 27th, 2012, that safe haven was shattered.
That night has forever changed me and my children because we were there. We seen it. We experienced it.
Police say the men broke into the house and at least one used a knife to slash 5 people, including Sandra.
We heard them tell her, we're going to kill you and we're going to get away with it.
She died about 2 weeks later from massive blood loss. The survivors left with physical and emotional wounds that may never heal.
My son was the first one that the attackers came in contact with. He won't go to a door if he hears a knock. He sleeps with a weapon in his bed with him because of the fear that was instilled that night.
That fear may never fade. But the family continues to put on a brave face so they can get justice for the woman who gave them so much.
I think she'd be proud of what we've done.
I'm doing my best to carry on without her and to see that justice is served on all of them.
If I was doing something illegal or against the law, I would think the police would be here.
That's what Rick Franklin had to say to us back in April when we confronted him about several residents' allegations that he and his brother Gary were ripping them off.
I would talk to anybody you get. If you get somebody that says I've got a complaint with Rick Franklin. I will talk to him.
Turns out multiple people had complaints. In a federal indictment filed last week, Rick, Gary, and an accomplice named Richard Maxson are accused of stealing trucks and construction equipment and trying to sell them. As part of the elaborate scheme, they bought Chinese trailers and used those titles and VIN numbers on the stolen property, making it seem legitimate.
We checked the title. It came up as clear, so I thought, let's set up a time to go meet and get it.
Earlier this year, Jason Sivany drove all the way from Minnesota to pick up a trailer from the Franklins. Shortly after he got home, he found out it was stolen.
This guy and his brother have been in and out of jail since 1995. I do know the trailer that I bought was stolen from Michigan. So I'm just wondering how the heck these guys are still on the street.
It's a question many folks have been asking about the Franklins for years. And now they're left wondering, will these federal charges actually keep them behind bars? For much of his high school career, Bridgman senior Thomas Adams has been screaming on the sidelines. That unparalleled enthusiasm made him an easy pick for team manager, though Adams admits he's always dreamed of something more. But a stroke he suffered as a baby makes his favorite sport a challenge.
It's very hard. I can't use my right side that well, so I just have to use everything on my left side.
All that practice paid off. After spending 3 years on the bench, Adams finally got a shot on the court.
His senior year, we promised him if he worked really hard and did all the running and conditioning, he could wear a uniform on game nights and maybe check in.
He did more than just check in during a February game against Lake Michigan Catholic. Thomas sunk a basket right before the buzzer.
It felt great because when I scored my first basket, I was so happy. Everyone else was so happy.
The happiness didn't stop there. Thomas played an entire quarter against River Valley on Monday, scoring a total of 8 points.
Standing ovations, the teams were chest bumping each other. They made sure that he got the ball right away, and it was just great. It was just unbelievable.
And there's no word more fitting to describe Thomas's senior season. A kid whose hoop dream seemed like a long shot ended up sinking shots. And that's simply unbelievable.
It's something he's always wanted to do, and he's got to do it.
I just love my teammates and everything, and my coach for giving me this opportunity to play with them and stuff, and being on a team for my 4 years. So I'm proud of that.
Barbara Harrington, 16 Morning News. For more than 25 years.
Well, when we moved in 1985,
a behemoth blue spruce
specifically placed the location of the house to save the tree,
has made Indiana Avenue a little bit brighter.
This year, when I put the lights up, I rent a 50-foot cherry picker.
As the tree's grown over the decades, so has its popularity.
All of the family got involved. So we were having fun doing it, and it wasn't long before we realized that we had something special that could bring a little cheer to the rest of the city.
So for a few weeks each winter, the Stutzman home becomes a destination, a place people can stop to find a little holiday cheer.
We had one lady that sent us a letter and thanked us that she was a single mom many years ago. And she and her kids, was the brightest part of their holiday was to drive by and look at our tree.
Stories like that have kept the tradition alive for nearly 3 decades.
Well, there's a lot of memories, but everything has its time.
Now the tree must come down, thanks to an untreatable fungus.
Probably look for a nice day in January to get back up there with the cherry picker and start pulling the lights off.
But long after those lights come off, the Stutzman tree will live on through the spirit of the holiday.
I imagine now somebody else is going to have to pick up the pieces and carry on the tradition somewhere else.